Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you are watching my walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for Nintendo Wii U and Switch. So in the last video, we started working our way towards Kakariko Village and unlocked the Dueling Peaks Tower. And we also, now that we have this portion of our map unveiled, I placed a bunch of pins, including the locations of many different farming locations. And I'm going to be going to one of those farming spots here in just a little bit, in particular to get some rupees so that we can purchase some things once we reach Kakariko. Next, I'm flying back to my horse, which is optional to bring. You don't even need a horse in general, though, for this game. It's just handy to have. And I am going to get some sneaky river snails along the way. They do glow at night, which makes them easier to find, but they are here during the day as well if you are observant and pay attention. But yeah, just in general, you can, like I was saying earlier in the last video, if you're getting sneaky river snails in passing, you probably had all of the ones you need for the entire game for upgrades. And honestly, you only need those upgrades pretty early. You don't really need them super late in the game at all. So it's not a big deal. We don't really even need that many of them. So continuing onwards, bringing a horse is optional. I'm going to ride my horse for a bit and then keep getting off my horse and collecting goodies along the way. So it's a little bit redundant even bringing a horse in the first place. But if you can have a horse, that's awesome. If you don't have one, it's not a big deal and you can just run this entire distance. I will say, I feel like the only thing that really matters here if you are to have a horse is it just makes it a little bit easier to get past these little Zalfos in the water. Just so we don't have to deal with them, we can just run right past them. But other than that, it doesn't really matter too much for this current section, and like I've explained in the last couple videos, you can always just go to a stable and then take out your horse no matter where you are. So if you leave your horse somewhere, you can always just make it appear at any stable you've unlocked, which is actually really nice. So don't worry about leaving your horse somewhere, you can totally just teleport it wherever you want to go. So one of the things that you unlock when you get your first tower, other than the one that is on the Great Plateau anyways, the next time you unlock any tower, you will then gain the ability to sense for things. And the first thing that we can sense for is shrines. That looks like that's blue pulsing that's just above our temperature meter, which is right next to the minimap in the bottom right corner. And this will the pulsing gets stronger and the noise gets more intense as you are facing towards something that you are looking for. In this particular case, the only thing we can sense for at this point is just shrines, and that is very useful early on because we want as many teleport points as possible, and this will also make our hero stronger. So there is a shrine here in Dueling Peaks, in between the two peaks, that is up on this upper ledge. I highly recommend you go to it, and this is the Ree Dahee shrine. This shrine is a series of puzzles that involve stepping on switches to make platforms tilt, which will cause the orbs that are on top of them to land inside slots, is our goal here. The puzzles get progressively harder, and each one you complete will then activate a platform you can use to reach the next puzzle. So complete this first one, all you have to do is just step on the switch. For really straightforward, it's just to get you climatized to the concept, and the next one gets a little bit trickier. So what we have to do here is we have to step on top of the switch, which will tilt both platforms at the same time. What we need to do is step off the switch at the right timing so that the orb will land on the second platform and not fall into the abyss off to the far right. So step on the switch and then get off at the right time, and poof, there you go. So that's all pretty straightforward. The next one is a little bit harder. Now, some little trick for you to know is when orbs do fall off into the abyss, they typically will then come out of a dispenser that is in the ceiling. So in this example up ahead, it's going to fall out of the dispenser when it falls into the abyss, and we can actually use this to our advantage. By making it fall into the pit on purpose, we can then make it come out of the dispenser. And I actually think this is to your advantage because we can use the falling momentum to increase the speed of the roll of the orb. So our goal for this puzzle, how you complete it, is tilt the platform ahead of time, then use the momentum of the orb falling, then get off the platform at the right time to fling it up so that it lands in the platform off to the far right so we get it into the slot. So a lot of shrines that have orbs almost always have a dispenser, and there are certain times, especially for apparatus puzzles, where it's really handy to be able to just bear that in mind, because you can purposefully throw the orbs into the abyss to reset their locations, and there are certain times where this allows you to solve puzzles significantly easier for shrines, and I'll show some of those as we get to them. It doesn't really matter too much for this shrine, it helps a little bit, but it's not crucial. But there's other ones where it makes it way easier. It's a way to kind of take advantage of the game's mechanics. So I'll try and point those out when we get to them. So next, what we're trying to do is reach the optional chest. To do so, you want to grab the nearby metal barrel and then put it on top of the switch back the way we came. This will tilt the platform we're currently on so we can reach it, which contains the climber's bandana. So at this point, especially if you don't have the DLC, then this will be your first headpiece, so it increases your armor by 1 for right now. Also, while wearing the climber's bandana, increases your climbing speed. It gives you one speed buff only in relation to climbing, and I'll explain what I mean by that in more detail later. Next, what we need to do is get back to the platform so we can get rid of the metal barrel that's on. I don't even know why I couldn't quite reach it from there. I guess because I was a little bit lower. You would think of anything that made me closer to it, but regardless, I couldn't quite reach it with magnesis. So either take the platform back or fly from the tilted point of the platform at the highest point so you can get back to that platform, get the metal barrel, take it off, the switch so we can reach the final area where the monk is residing. So by the way, in case you didn't notice, the Climber's Bandana gives you 3 armor. So that's a pretty big upgrade right now, considering the Majora's Mask only gives us 1. But we can also upgrade it to increase its armor even further. And so a lot of the armors we're going to be finding from here on out will do that. Well, not all of them, I guess. I'm getting a lot of DLC stuff, which none of that's upgradable. But a lot of the regular armor from the base game is upgradable, and so you can upgrade it to give you more armor. So you kind of want to decide on like some armor that you want to focus on to upgrade. You can upgrade all of it if you want to, and I'm going to be showing how to do that. However, in general, it's probably better to just pick a couple sets that you really like, or even just a couple pieces. So I would recommend, especially like early mid-game, it's really easy to get the materials just to upgrade just the bandana. It's very easy, and I would highly recommend you do that and kind of allocate those material resources to do so. I will say that generally speaking, the Climber's Bandana and just the climbing gear in general is kind of a fan favorite, especially for new players of Breath of the Wild, because it reduces the stamina cost of climbing. And you do a lot of climbing in this game. I will say, though, that now, as a more veteran player who has played through this game beaten it a couple different times, I feel like I just end up getting lazy and I don't really feel the need to equip the climbing bandana, because it's just like, as long as I have enough stamina to climb it, it doesn't matter. You know, if I'm climbing something big, then sure, it's nice, but there is also alternatives to that. I can eat stamina food, I can eat other food buffs that give me speed as well, so it's not really critical that I have this armor, I guess. So I just find myself getting lazy moving forward. But just generally speaking, as a good overall armor, it provides a lot of armor, and it has a good bonus that you will use for most of the game. It's applicable in almost all the areas of the entire game, so it's a very versatile armor piece to be focusing on. So once we emerge from in between Dueling Peaks, you'll see that the road actually forks. There is a bridge off to the left across the river, which leads towards Kakariko Village, which is our destination. Now if you take the road to the right instead, which is what I'm doing in this recording, then that leads towards Hickaly Woods, which is an optional little side area, which is the best place in the game to farm for silent shrooms. I highly recommend you mark this on your map. I'm currently using leaf icons in this recording. I eventually changed those later to be cooking pots, because I felt like that was a little bit more logical, and I ended up using the leaf icons to denote something else. Anyways, we can grab silent shrooms here. I'm going to grab a couple of them, but our first objective is actually to go into this little, there's a cracked wall off to the right, and you'll see that my sensor is actually going off, which indicates the location of a nearby shrine. So what I'm doing is I'm just picking up the silent shrooms that are along the way, and then as I'm heading towards this shrine off to the right. So up ahead, you'll see a bear. Players are often really excited when they see a bear for the first time. They're like, oh no, it's a bear! But don't worry, bears are they're not a threat at all. Honestly, it's one of the least dangerous things in Breath of the Wild. So just run right past it, you can ignore it. And off to the right, you want to use a Cryonis block on the water so that you can stand on top of it, switch to your bombs, and throw it at the cracked wall and blow it up before it lands in the water, otherwise it'll float downstream. So blow up the wall. This will gain you access to the Toto Saw Shrine. This is a really great teleport point, so we can get back to Hickaly Woods whenever we want. But also the puzzle in here is really easy. So puzzles in here are very easy. So I'd recommend you just do this real quick so you can get a quick spirit orb. So how apparatus puzzles work is you need to use the apparatus control mechanism with the A, and then this will cause your controller motion controls to move an object in the room. In this case, we're moving this little bridge. So what you need to do is you need to tilt either your WiiU gamepad or your Joy-Cons in order to cause the object to rotate the direction you want. In this particular case, what you want to do is you want to flip it upside down, because there is an optional chest that has the Mind's Eye shield. Anyways, you all can also tilt that at the same time to get it just right so you can make a bridge getting across. The Mind's Eye shield is a wooden shield, which is, it will burn with fire, and generally speaking, it's just kind of a mid-tier or mid-low tier shield. It's not all that great. However, something I will say is they are extremely rare. I think they are only found in chests, and I want to say off the top of my head, there's only 4 of them in the entire game, so this is actually a very rare shield. Later on in the game, there is the option of saving particular items, and you can put them in a house so that you can hang on to them and just look at them whenever you want. And this is sometimes what a lot of players like to do, is they like to grab a Mind's Eye shield for that. So you may want to save this shrine for that purpose so that you can have this particular chest, so you can have a Mind's Eye shield to put on your wall. For those of you who are very completionist-centric, if that's something you want to do, then feel free to do that. You might not want to actually open this chest yet. Anyways, continuing on towards the next puzzle, there is a set of stairs, and you need to slide the one set of stairs to get it in the middle. I was trying to be amusing in this particular recording. I was curious to see if I did it upside down, if I could still climb very well, and I totally could. My controller was getting, it was such an awkward angle. I was like, you know what, this is ridiculous. And then I still was feeling stubborn. I was going to do it for real for a second, and then I thought, you know what, I just want to. I just want to. So here I am trying one more time. I also think technically it might be easier maybe if I even flipped it around completely the other way as well. Like rotated it so it's facing me the other direction might be another way to do this too. This is totally ridiculous, of course. You don't have to do this. I was very pleased with myself while I was recording this. But yeah, like I was saying, the Mind's Eye Shield is an upgrade right now. However, if you want to keep one for yourself because you're a collector and you want to keep these rare items that you can't farm out in the wild very easily, then because this is so rare and there's only 4 of them in the game, you might want to actually not open this chest on purpose so that you can save it for your house. So that's up to you to decide what you want. I'm just going to go ahead and get it. I don't care about such things. I'm just trying to use whatever's most efficient, etc. And I don't think it's a very good shield in general. It's just better than what we have. So our first goal up ahead with this last apparatus is we want to flip it. Really, it's really awkward actually, but on the opposite side that you can't see, there's actually a chest next to a bunch of torches. You want to rotate it. It's almost like a 45-degree angle so that you can reach the chest containing a small key. So grab that, then go back to the apparatus and activate it again. If you, for whatever reason, like made the tilt of this particular apparatus platform awkward, where you couldn't climb back up on this ledge, you can either climb the nearby vines, or you can just simply sail down to the lower platform and use it to reach this instead. Next, flip it right side up, and you want to tilt it until the stairs slide over to the right side. This will allow us to then place the platform at a 45-degree angle so we can go up this platform, go up the stairs, and then go across to reach the monk. So there's a couple different options for making stealth food, and stealth food will allow you to get increased stealth for a limited time, and so there's a couple different ingredients you can use for that. One of the easiest ones, in my opinion, is just to use silent shrooms. Now, Hickaly Woods is the best place in the entire game to get silent shrooms, so it's a very easy place to get a whole bunch of stealth ingredients, so you can get a 10-minute level 3 stealth buff. And you can make, I don't know, you can make like 3 or 4 dishes just from one pass through here. It's super easy. It takes like no time at all. So you just come back here every blood moon every once in a while and you just get some more silent shrooms. You have more than enough stealth food to last you for the entire game, which is great. Now, stealth is useful for collecting bugs and critters, for sneaking up on enemies, but also for fishing, which is something I don't think a lot of people consider. You make less noise when you're swimming if you are wearing stealth gear, and so you can just swim right up to fish and collect them very easily. Alright, so next we're working our way south, and we're going to climb this nearby hill to get even more silent shrooms, and I'm also going to get a Korok along the way. Now, as far as stamina, or as far as stealth food goes, I think the easiest one in the entire game is just to cook 5 silent shrooms. Super easy, you know exactly what to do, it gives you a 10-minute stealth buff for level 3, it's awesome. Now, the next most efficient stealth food option would be to cook probably 2 Silent Princess and 3 Blue Nightshade. Both of those ingredients are pretty easy to get. Blue Nightshade can be gotten in Kakariko very easily, as I will show later in the next video. There's actually a great place you can farm them here near Kakariko. Very easy, you can get a ton of them. As far as Silent Princess goes, the best places to get them is on top of Satori Mountain, and also at every fairy fountain. There's always 3 of them at every fairy fountain, as well as somewhere between 3 and 4 Endura Carrots. Endura Carrots are also a very valuable item, so that's cool. The problem is just that means you're warping to every Great Fairy Fountain and then running over to them. It's just really time consuming. So like, if you're just needing several stealth food options, then this is way faster and it's less like you don't have to go sorting through your ingredients to find them as hard either. You just like go straight to the silent shrooms and cook them a bunch of times. It's really easy, really fast. So I think this is overall the easiest stealth option. If you want to use food as opposed to buying the stealth outfit and swapping out all the time, then this is the best option in the game, in my opinion. So just so you know, most of the pools and rivers in Hyrule actually have fish in them. However, a lot of them just have common fish, and so those are like Hyrule Bass and Mighty Carps and Armored Carps, and those are really common ingredients that are not worth very much. They don't give you very good bonuses, and they are just a huge waste of time, honestly. You can get them in passing, and here I'm just showing the fact that there is fish here because I think a lot of people just kind of ignore them and don't even realize they're here. But these are pretty low-tier fish, so unless you're just getting them in passing, I don't really think it's worth your time. It's much better to go to specific places that have higher concentrations of higher-tier fish. Now, as far as the types of fish I consider worth it, for example, is basically, just so you know, most fish, there is at least one fish that gives you like the best in most categories. So there's a sizzlefin trout, there's a chillfin trout, for example, that give you heat and cold resistance. There's a voltfin trout. There's Stamiko bass are pretty good. There's mighty and armored porgies. Those are really good, for example. And there's specific places to farm each one of those things. So those are the like fish that are worth getting. So I will say, like, as far as pools and stuff like that, mostly what you're looking for throughout Hyrule is more like hardy bass and Stamiko bass are kind of the ones you kind of maybe want to make mental notes of, maybe even pin. Those are the ones that are actually worth thinking about. But all the other ones, can basically just be ignored. It would be my advice just in general. So once you get to the far south, you want to climb this hill, and at the top you'll find a whole ton of silent shrooms. There's also a cracked wall which you can blow up with bombs, and inside you'll find a second cracked wall which you can also blow up to reveal even more chests. So there's a whole bunch of chests inside this cave, and most of them contain gems, which is very valuable. You can sell them all for rupees. There's actually a ton of like rupee value we got here. I'm actually going to be saving my gems because I want them for upgrades, which will make sense later. But the last chest that we unlocked has a flame blade inside it. Now, flame blades are awesome. I'd recommend you have at least one fire weapon in your inventory at all times because it'll be very handy to change the time of day. So you can blow up trees with bombs to get wood, and wood will allow you to throw it down, and then you can light a campfire by just setting it on fire with a fire weapon, and then you can sit at the campfire to change the time of day. This is useful to switch back and forth between day and night for various events, whether that's for hunting for silent ingredients because they glow at night, whether that's to make Stalnox appear so you can get, for example, a flame blade. There's a Stalnox that is on Satori Mountain, and you can kill it to get a flame blade whenever you want. So if your flame blade is starting to run out of durability, you can go get another one whenever you want, and that's awesome. Stalnox will reappear every blood moon, so you can always farm for that whenever you like. But yeah, this is definitely the best weapon we have so far. The tooltips are actually a little bit misleading on elemental weapons because they do... The number that you see on the screen is actually the physical damage of the weapon, which is how much damage it does every hit. However, it also has a charged up elemental effect. When you use it, you have to wait for it to recharge for a little bit. So it is a little bit odd. A little trick for that, by the way, is you can use an elemental weapon and then just swap weapons, and it continues charging while it's in your inventory. So you can technically just keep using elemental weapons and just swap them back and forth over and over again to get the max amount of damage you possibly can, and that's actually the best way to use them. But just so you know, as far as a use for this fire weapon, I'd highly recommend you don't use it in combat. What we actually want it for is for lighting fires, and also for killing ice enemies. And we don't have access to any ice enemies right now, but later you'll find some enemies that are very difficult, that have a lot of health, that are ice element, and if you use a fire weapon on them, you can kill them instantly. So really what you want to do is you want to save this weapon for that, would be ideally what you do. But like I said, if you want to, you can totally farm for fire weapons as well. Up ahead, all I'm doing in this area is I'm just getting Koroks, I'm getting chests, and I'm collecting goodies along the way. So I just ran into this Bokoblin encampment, for example, stole their wooden chest, which I don't have to defeat them for, and then I just got the goodies that was around their campfire. So I'm not actually fighting these guys at all. You can also kill the bear if you want to, totally not worth it. But yes, just grab all the mushrooms you want and then go back to your horse and continue on back towards the north. So as I was explaining before, at every stable there is a shrine right next to it, and you want them because this is a teleport point to get to the stable right away, and it's very convenient. And most of these shrines that are right next to the stables are actually really easy too. They have pretty easy puzzles in them, so it's a spirit orb you can get very quickly. You can see my shrines going nuts, or my sensors going nuts because there's this shrine right next to me. So to get to this shrine, the easiest way to do this is to either climb the shrine itself, so you can get on the backside, just jump on it and start climbing, and then just circle around to the front, and then drop down, and that's great. Or you can just use Cryonis in the water and then jump over the spikes. Alternatively, of course, you can just walk right through the spikes. You just take damage the first time initially, and then while you're still like blinking and in that mid-recovery point, you can just jump over. I'm pretty sure that works. I think you can just walk over them, basically. It's a little bit awkward. It's probably easier, honestly, to do like a backflip onto them or something, but yeah, there's no reason to take damage, though. But yes, this will lead to the Dahammar shrine, which is awesome. So far we've just been using Cryonis on horizontal bodies of water, but you can also use them on vertical stuff, such as these waterfalls. So you can use it to make a block that sticks out horizontally instead, and that will allow you can climb it the same way, it just is a different orientation. So just something to keep in mind, anytime you see water of any kind, waterfall or otherwise, you can use Cryonis on it. So here I'm going to use it to zigzag back and forth to climb and reach this nearby chest. That's all great. By the way, when you are climbing waterfalls, you don't have to zigzag like I just did there. It's easier, but you don't have to do that. You can totally climb the Cryonis block as it's coming out of the waterfall. So if you stand on top of a Cryonis block, use a Cryonis block right in front of you, you can jump onto the front of the block and as it's coming out of the waterfall. And so it doesn't push you off. You grab on before it ever gets to that point. So it's pretty cool. Up ahead, we need to get this orb over to this far side. In order to do so, you just need some strategically placed blocks. Very easy to do. So here is the solution to this puzzle. This keeps the teeter-totter from tilting the wrong direction, and then just have another block off to the far side for the orb to bounce off of. This will cause it to land on the platform. You'll notice I didn't actually jump and sail over because I didn't want to be in the middle of sailing when this cutscene happened. Sometimes I've had it screw up on me a little bit, so I try to avoid that, but once it's done, you can totally just fly over here. Something I keep an eye out for when I'm playing video games is I've done a little bit of game development on the side when I was younger and stuff, just messing around and stuff. So one of the things I think about often when I'm playing games is I look at their tutorials, both because I'm a walkthrough writer too and I'm trying to figure out how to explain it, and I'm also just like observing how does the game explain its gameplay mechanics. And Nintendo tends to do a pretty good job with tutorials in general. Now, a good tutorial explains gameplay mechanics in a way that feels engaging and interesting and like makes you feel rewarded and you're glad you did it. If it's done well, you don't even realize it was a tutorial. And so this is a great example that actually is the Dahammar Shrine is a tutorial to explain how to use Cryonis on waterfalls. In fact, the very first waterfall you see in there actually has a horizontal surface as well, so you can use it just like we've been using it. But then the very next one is only a waterfall, so you have to use it on the wall. That's the only way to do it. It's kind of baby steps, you know? They're like, okay, here you can optionally use the waterfall or you can use the horizontal surface. Now you have to use the waterfall. Now we have a more complicated puzzle using waterfalls, and you have to figure out how it interacts with this orb up ahead. And I just think it's done really well. And it's not like they don't have all these big dialogue boxes. They don't say anything. But also just notice the placement of the Dahammar Shrine. It's here on the way towards Kakariko. We just got the Dueling Peaks Tower. So you have our sensor, which is like beeping at us super obnoxiously to point out the fact that there's a shrine here. It's kind of hard to miss. So pretty much everybody, all new players, will go to this shrine. Pretty much guaranteed. I would be shocked actually if there's people that just walk past this, for example, just because it's so obvious. And I don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's not super heavy-handed, kinda, but if you look at it in that light, you're like, oh yeah, I guess it really is. Anyways, that is a tutorial shrine, and it's to explain the horizontal mechanic of Cryonis so that you're more familiar with that, so that you're prepared for the more difficult shrines to get into the meat of the game that Nintendo really wants you to do. But anyways, the shrine itself feels fun. It's good, like it's good puzzles, and it feels good, and it makes me happy. It feels like an adventure, and I'm glad I did it. But yeah, one of the phrases you hear in video game development industry is show, don't tell. So ideally you want to try to avoid dialogue boxes and stuff as much as possible. But if you can turn your tutorial into something where it's fun and it feels engaging and it makes the players feel good, that's really what you're aiming for, and that's awesome. There are subtle ways to do things in which the player feels empowered, and that's really what you want when all's said and done, is that the player actually feels cool for doing it. And that's like kind of the goal for a lot of these like kind of adventure games, is what you want to do is you want to empower the player and make them feel accomplished for whatever they're doing. So if you just start having dialogue boxes pop up all the time, usually that is kind of like bad. That's a bad sign, I guess. Like sometimes there's no way to avoid it, but try to avoid it as much as you can and just have the gameplay, have the mechanics speak for themselves is really what you want ideally. So one quick tip for you is something I could have done here. It doesn't really matter too much because I'm on my way to a cooking pot, so this is kind of irrelevant. But just as a tip for you is here under the bridge, something I could have done is you'll notice the rain stops under this bridge and I'm on top of this Cryonis blocks. So like especially right here when I'm right in the middle, there's no rain. So what I can do is I can actually stand on the corner of the Cryonis block and face towards the other corner, so I have a lot of room. Then you go to my materials, whip out a pile of wood, and then use the fire weapon to set it on fire. Then I can change the time of day to make it stop raining. I know that's a weird thing to wrap your mind around. You're like, putting fire on top of an ice block? Are you insane? It totally works. So anyways, that's just a quick tip for you as a way of dealing with it. So just try and like keep little mechanics like that in mind, because it allows you to deal with rain effectively, and it's great. Now, as I was saying, I'm on my way to this cooking pot, so I'm not worried about it because I can just change the time of day anyways, so it's not a big deal. In fact, I probably could have just done that right now to deal with these style enemies instead, and that would have been a fine way of doing that. I decided I would just ignore them, but they ended up kind of getting in my way. But my goal here was to get to this chest. But yeah, going back to what I was saying a little bit ago, is that, like, ideally the point you want to get to with your game is where players feel empowered. So, like, what people might say about that shrine is, I was climbing waterfalls and it was awesome. Like, that's what you want to have happen. It's not like, because if you have all this kind of heavy-handed dialogue where it's describing in detail exactly how to do it, then people feel like, oh, I'm still in tutorial mode, I haven't actually like started the adventure yet, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, as opposed to, hey, I found the shrine and I discovered I could climb waterfalls. But it's presented in such a way, the placement of the waterfalls is done in such a way where they have to do it the correct way, the way that you're wanting them to learn, but it doesn't feel heavy-handed. It's baby steps, you steadily ramp it up. It doesn't make the player feel stupid or anything, it makes them feel empowered. So the way you present the information can have a positive effect. The goal is that players learn your mechanics, the ones you're trying to teach, but that they feel that their overall emotional experience when they talk about it is that it was positive. They're like, that was cool, and I want to do that again. And like, if you can accomplish that, then you are successful, and that's really, really good. That's what ideally you want all of your tutorials to feel that way. And I just think it's interesting to point out, if you are a game developer or an aspiring author, I feel like this is just a great example of how to do it well. In the example of writing a book, is you're trying to introduce elements in such a way. I realize the goal is, like, what everybody wants is they want to get past all of the introductory stuff so they can really get to the meat of the story or the meat of the game. That's really what you want. You want to start getting to the more complicated stuff where it's awesome. I would just say, I would encourage you to not underestimate the power of the journey. That the journey is part of what makes the end hype so worthwhile. It's what makes it feel so good, so vindicating. Whether that's a story or whether it's a game where it's an adventure like this. We start out with crappy weapons, and that is part of the journey. And if you just go immediately to having the awesome stuff, it doesn't feel awesome. It's that contrast, but also the fact that you earned it. That's part of what feels good about it. So if you can introduce shrines, introduce your gameplay mechanics in a subtle way that makes people feel awesome, that is what you want to aspire to. That these early shrines are just as important as the end shrines, is what I would say. The goal is to have an adventure, not a classroom. Watching players playtest your game can be really valuable feedback, and you want to watch for places where they get confused, or, like, ideally the point you want to get to is where they have all these aha moments, where they feel smart for figuring out how to use the mechanics well, as opposed to having to have it explained to them. And honestly, designing your early shrines in a way that empowers the players and makes them feel awesome shows a lot of respect to your players. And I think, honestly, that makes the game developers earn our respect, too, is something else I would say. I just think that's all interesting to share, and just a concept to try and wrap your mind around and to aspire to. And I just feel like this shrine is a really good example of that for anybody who is a budding author or game developer. All right, let's go back to talking about the actual game. You know, writing a walkthrough. Let's just do it. So there is a character up ahead. His name is Hestu, and he says he is missing his priceless maracas. So if we can get him back from him, then he will give us some rewards, which is awesome. So what you want to do is, I highly recommend you do this before you get to Kakariko, and there is some monsters up ahead we need to kill. There are 3 blue bokoblins, which are a little bit stronger than the red ones we've fought so far. We fought a couple blue ones. They're not too bad. Now, because it's night, these guys are actually sleeping, and this might actually be a pretty good way of dealing with this. If you're scared of this, especially in hero mode, then I'd recommend you throw down a piece of wood, light it with your flame blade, and then you can make it night. Then just sneak up on these guys, use your highest damage weapon. If you follow along with me, I did grab a Moonlight Scimitar. I'm not sure why this last one woke up. I don't understand. I didn't move or anything, but he still woke up. So I'm not sure why that happened. Regardless, I'm just going to go ahead and smack him. Now, if you are scared of these guys, another alternative is to just use bombs to damage them slowly and keep them at a distance, and that would work as well. So once you've defeated them all, this will unlock a nearby skull chest. Go ahead and open it to find Hestu's maracas. Next, we just want to run all the way back to Hestu and deliver them to complete this side quest. What this will do is it'll allow us to buy upgrades from Hestu by spending Korok seeds, which is a currency we've been collecting so far, if you've been following along with me. And I haven't been going super far out of my way to get them. I've just been kind of getting them when they're relatively convenient. But anyways, I would recommend you collect at least 50 or so Korok seeds. Just in general, do that early game, and then after that you can do whatever you want. You can get more if you want to, or just ignore it. There's Korok seeds there's so many of them, so whatever you want to do, I personally just recommend getting them as you're passing by. So if something looks convenient and you're walking by a suspicious circle of rocks and it's easy, whatever, just go for it and go ahead and do it. And likewise, when I'm just collecting chests and stuff anyways, I go ahead and do it too. The price for each upgrade starts out as 1 Korok seed, and then it goes up exponentially from there. So whatever you decide to focus on will end up getting pricey pretty quickly. So it is a lot cheaper to just kind of evenly distribute your seeds at first. So whatever you want to do, I would recommend, in my personal opinion, just 1 range slot and all the rest melee would be what I'd recommend for now anyways. And the reason for that is in part because we want to have some utility items. Like, for example, you know, we have our fire weapon and we also have an iron sledgehammer, and you want to have those just on hand in general. So I think it makes sense to focus a little bit more on weapons, at least at first. After that, you can decide whatever you want. Ah yes, Hestu's dance is quite silly. So I showed it that first time. I'm just going to be fast-forwarding through it from now on. And you should get as many upgrades as you can in the categories that you want. But at some point, he will cut you off. It's somewhere between like 2 and 5 upgrades, and it varies from game to game. I'm not actually sure what determines how many upgrades he'll allow you to do. But regardless, at some point, he will just cut you off. For me, he did it at 2 upgrades. And that's sad because that's like, I think the lowest amount he can possibly do. But anyway, from now on, we can't do any more upgrades with him for now, but you can find him at other locations. He's going to start working towards the Korok Forest, otherwise known as the Great Forest of Hyrule, and that's to the far northeast. And so we can't actually, well, actually just north of here, I guess. Anyways, you can find him at various stables on the way, and I'm not sure if there's a particular cutoff where he'll just disappear at those stables either, or if you can talk with him there throughout the entire game. His location varies slightly, but just know he's working his way north is what's going to happen. So you can talk to him at various stables along the way. So if you want to talk with him and get more upgrades before you have already made it all the way to the Korok Forest, that would be a way you can do that. So next we're going to hop back on our horse. We're continuing on towards Kakariko. There is a couple Koroks along the way that you can get. In particular, there is one of these magnetic puzzles. I don't think I've done one of these yet, but they're pretty simple. Usually there's a pattern of two like chunks of rocks, whatever, that are here, but then there's one magnetic block nearby, and you need to use it to make both the patterns the same. So do so. This will make a Korok. I think this is kind of the only one I'm really going to show. We'll see if there's any more like complicated ones, but just know there's Korok puzzles like that every once in a while. I'm getting this one because it's really easy. There's also a really easy one as you're entering Kakariko itself, and that is simply that you can shoot the there's a shield above the ridge here, and you can shoot that. Also, by the way, there is usually an energetic rhino beetle that is up against this this pillar here too of this entrance, so just keep an eye out for that. If you see one in the distance, try to like duck down and get closer to it. I did not see one, so I just went ahead and ran forward. So what you want to do is you want to shoot an arrow at the shield that is above this arch, and that will cause a Korok to appear as well. So here we have the entrance to Kakariko Village, and there's a ton of stuff to do here, so I'm going to break this up into the next video. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you appreciate how much I appreciate you watching this video, you could show your appreciation by clicking that like button. And that would be much appreciated by myself. It's a symbiotic relationship. Speaking of which, thanks to all my Patreon supporters for helping to make this possible. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, be sure to throw a like on it, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content just like this. Remember to stay awesome, you have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.